Hey everyone, happy Saturday. Welcome into Morning Invest on this Saturday edition of the show. Hope you're all doing well on this Saturday. And, it's even though it's January 2nd, we've still got a lot of news to get to this morning. So hope you are doing well. Let's get into it this morning. Today we're going to talk about President Trump torching members of the GOP in the Senate this morning. Oh, yes. When there's Twitter aflame, on a Saturday morning. I remember when I covered the news, when I was a news anchor for many years, Saturday mornings were like President Trump's tweet time. He's up, he's fired up. And so he's lighting up the members of the Senate GOP this morning for their failure and blocking for a fourth time $2,000 stimulus checks, folks. And tomorrow, of course, the new Congress will be sworn in. Is there some leverage? Can we maneuver to get these $2,000 stimulus checks in the next few days? It seems like it's on the president's back this morning because Mitch McConnell is not bowing to President Trump on this. And that is the battle that is unfolding. Also, Senate Democrats, we need to talk about this morning. I mean, they totally conceded to Republicans on this. We're going to go through the list of people who voted against that Defense Authorization Act and stood with Bernie Sanders to stand for $2,000 stimulus checks. But a large majority of them caved, which is no surprise. And we were warning you that this would happen. I warned you yesterday, though, President Trump was going to burn the place down. I said, here's what's going to emerge over the weekend. President Trump on Saturday, if you watched my show yesterday, I predicted this, that President Trump was going to explode against Senate Republicans. And he is going to be heading to Georgia on Monday. It puts him in a weird predicament. Obviously, he's there promoting the Georgia Senate runoff races. But on the other hand, he's calling them illegal. And so he's in a bit of a conundrum. He's basically telling people don't vote, but also vote. And also support these people who also didn't support stimulus checks. And then they did sort of at the end. So they're political opportunists. I mean, he's in a real bind here. So what will he do? I mean, I'm all eyes on President Trump over the next 24 hours. And it looks like there's sort of a split emerging right now, a major split in the Republican Party. From the rhinos, the Republicans in name only, to the populist sort of Trump Republicans. And will they start a new party? All of that and more we will talk about on the show today. Plus a hilarious opinion piece in Newsweek this morning from a guy that says, yes, Mitch McConnell is right. $2,000 checks are a bad idea. So we're going to go through that this morning. And Senator Schumer begins 2021 promising to fight. Of course, then he immediately collapses. So we're going to list Chuck Schumer, Kamala Harris. We're going to call them out this morning on the show. All of the people that said they were going to fight and just bent over for Mitch McConnell. That's how this works. When big money is at play, it's a shock, I'm sure. Grover is here this morning. Hey, buddy. He's ready for a good show. He, although, had a big run this morning, so he is passed out after my son and wife took him on a nice long walk. So he is exhausted. So hopefully no yipping and barking during the show. Let me know how everyone is doing this morning in the chat. Yes, Christina Ellis says, I think I see some artwork on the mantle behind Clayton. That's right. That right there is we got some canvases for the kids for Christmas because my little girl Ava wanted some canvases to be able to paint. So here, I'll grab. She's not done yet. She was drawing all 4 seasons. So she hasn't completed hers yet. So thank you for noticing that. Good morning. We'll get to a lot of your questions this morning on the show. We'll show yours a little later. Okay. My littlest one says, show mine. Well, welcome in on this Saturday. So what is the very latest on the stimulus checks, folks? Well, I wish I had better news for you, but I don't. For the fourth time in as many days, senators on the GOP side blocked the move to bring $2,000 stimulus checks up for a vote, both from the House side, also from the Senate side. 2 different opportunities shot down by Republicans. And one Republican who I guess decided to come out of his shell yesterday and spend a lot of time being the fall guy for this was Senator John Thune of South Dakota. He's the Senate Majority Whip from South Dakota. He's the second most powerful senator in the United States behind Mitch McConnell. Well, President Trump this morning lit up and tore into the senators, Mitch McConnell and Senator John Thune. Trump attacks number 2 Senate Republican as the president turns on allies in his final days of office. So who did he go after? He went after Senator John Thune. He says, I hope to see the great governor of South Dakota, Kristi Noem, run against Rhino, Senator John Thune, in the upcoming 2022 primary. She would do a fantastic job in the U.S. Senate. But if not Kristi, others are already lining up. South Dakota wants strong leadership now. Specifically, of course, he's talking about Senator John Thune yesterday, spending quite a few, most of the afternoon, slamming the stimulus, slamming the $2,000 stimulus checks, that, oh, we don't need this, that we cannot mortgage our children's futures, that we should be really concerned about the deficit. If you missed any of this exchange, it's worth watching. This is what President Trump is fired up about this morning and attacking Senate Democrats or Senate Republicans over this very issue. This was Bernie Sanders facing off against Senator John Thune. And you have to watch Bernie Sanders just torch him over the question on deficits. Like, oh, you're suddenly now interested in worrying about like the amount of money we're sending out to millionaires? That's so fascinating that you're suddenly concerned about this.
Has the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I would ask my friend from South Dakota, do you disagree with the Tax Policy Center, which says that the top 5% of Americans, the wealthiest people in our country, would receive less than 1% of the total benefits being dispersed?
I have not seen the Tax Policy Center, but I know math, and I know as a basic principle that when you stick bigger numbers in there, and you're using the same formula to phase something out, you're going to make it available to people who make a lot more money. That is a mathematical fact. And what you are saying when you talk about the same formula, it skews entirely different in the income scale. You know that. And all I'm saying is don't misrepresent the facts.
What I am saying is that according to a very reputable tax center organization, people who do this for a living, less than 1% of the benefits of the entire program go to the wealthiest people in this country. So when you're talking about trying to say, oh my God, all of this money is going to the rich, that ain't really true. But I would also ask my friend, where did you suddenly become a religious adherent about concern of socialism for the rich when you gave 83% of the benefits to the rich and large corporations in the tax bill that you supported? Where was your concern about socialism for the rich when Amazon, owned by the richest guy in the world, got a $129 million tax rebate? I didn't hear much about socialism for the rich during that debate. Yeah.
Very simply, what you are suggesting, so what you're saying here is the owner of the Washington Post, who said this is really bad policy and shouldn't be done in this way at the end of this year, is that what you're saying, that because he is a wealthy person that somehow that's why he's making that statement? I think the Washington Post editorial board in most cases would be very sympathetic to the senator from Vermont's argument, because they take a liberal point of view on almost every issue. My point very simply is that we have limited amount of resources. This is borrowed money, as the senator from Vermont knows. And when we spent months, literally months, and you asked, why can't you guys just come down here? Why can't you just come down here and debate this? We tried for months to get the Democrats down here to debate a bill. We've put a bill on the floor in September. We put a bill on the floor in October, a coronavirus relief bill. And you guys blocked it. You didn't even want to talk about it. You didn't want to have an opportunity to amend it. We've been working at this for months, and we finally arrived after months at a proposal that helps people who need it the most, including nutrition assistance, including rental assistance, and including checks to people, $2,400 per family, and including unemployment.
All that I'm saying, this is a great debate, John. We should have this debate. And in 2 minutes, John, I'm going to give you the opportunity to say you support what we're doing, and then we will have this debate. That's your opportunity. But I want to get back. The senator from South Dakota did not answer the question that there was not apparently huge concern about socialism for the rich in the bill that they supported, or worried about the debt that would incur.
Torched. Why don't you answer the question, Senator Thune? That's, of course, what led to President Trump overnight to attack Republicans in the Senate and the Senate leadership. And there is a battle unfolding. And this is going to be, I'm telling you, all eyes on what happens in Georgia in the next few days with this election. If President Trump coming out tweeting overnight and attacking the second Senator Thune, the number 2 Senate Republican, saying, I hope the great state of South Dakota, Kristi Noem, the great governor, runs against Senator John Thune. Ouch. Like, he hasn't really named names before. He's just been saying that the terrible Senate leadership. He's been he's just been slamming the terrible Senate leadership. But now he's naming names this morning. And when President Trump names names, millions of people fall in line behind him naming names. Make no mistake about it. You come out on the wrong side of the president on the Republican ticket, it does not bode well for you. As we have seen repeatedly, those people who've tried, they've lost their elections. Why? Because the president had run, and when he's at his best, I'm no Trump supporter at all, as you know, right? I'm a progressive. I do not. But I agree with many of his popular stances. Ending wars. Yes, providing $2,000 stimulus checks. I mean, the list of things I agree with him on are very few and far between. But ending foreign wars and calling out the military-industrial complex and calling out members of the Republican Party for supporting these endless wars. Yeah, I like that. I really like that. I also like when he calls out the ridiculousness of Senate leadership and says, pass $2,000 stimulus checks right now. He also took them on to attack them on with regards to Section 230. He couldn't believe this last night as he tweeted this: Republicans should have gotten rid of Section 230 in the defense bill, and you wouldn't have had this problem. Never learn. He slammed Senate leadership. And he hit them multiple times this week. Senator John Thune, of course, has been one of the top Republicans to speak in favor of accepting the Electoral College results and President-elect Joe Biden's victory. That didn't make him happy. But now he's got his sights set. And I'm telling you, watch today, folks, what's going to happen. President Trump is going to unload on Mitch McConnell. I can sense it in the air. Can you sense it like a storm coming? Mitch McConnell, who would not bring the House version of the bill, $2,000 to the floor for a vote, and blocked it 4 times. So now the president is in a weird pickle here with all of this, because President Trump heads to Georgia on Monday, and he's going to be down there supporting the election. But he's also on the same time slamming the election, saying it's all fake in Georgia. So will Georgia Republicans want to come out and vote for for David Perdue or Kelly Loeffler when the president of the United States is saying the whole thing is rigged in Georgia and you shouldn't even accept the results? Who's going to want to come out and vote on the Republican side? So this is the front page of Politico this morning, and it's a really interesting piece that Trump attacks on the Senate Republicans complicate his Georgia message, and I'll kind of go through this a little bit. He's not going to get his $2,000 stimulus checks, the piece says, and he's blaming the very Senate Republican leaders that he's trying to protect in the closing days of the Georgia runoff. I mean, this is the conundrum, right? He's basically saying, vote for Kelly Loeffler and David Perdue in Georgia because that will keep Mitch McConnell in power as Senate Majority Leader. The very guy that I think is a failed leader, Trump is saying. So wrap your head around that one. Yes, Mitch McConnell has been an awful Senate Majority Leader. I hope that Turtle Boy gets sent packing back to Kentucky. He's let his Kentuckians down in a big, big way. 10 of the poorest counties in the United States are in Kentucky. I heard from many of you who live in Kentucky. You said, I don't understand how this guy continues to win. Trump's last-minute moves, though, in Georgia to close out this presidency, demand for increased stimulus payments, have put Republicans in a bind ahead of the state runoff elections, the piece says. And the president's messaging is ironically aligned with that of the Democrats, who see a renewed opening in their broader push for more coronavirus relief aid. Though he is actively campaigning for the state's two incumbent GOP senators, Kelly Loeffler and David Perdue, holding a Monday night rally to drive turnout to help save the Republican majority, Trump is continuing to run roughshod all over the party's message for Tuesday's must-win runoff election. Some Republicans worry that's going to give the Democrats a perfect opening to win. And by the way, these candidates haven't helped themselves at all. David Perdue was a really embarrassing television interview. Did any of you guys catch this? I love what Fox does. It's so funny to me. So you get these former members of Congress who leave, they lose elections, etc. And in many ways, very often these guys end up being disgraced for one reason or another. And then they get hired on television. Or during the holiday season, they will put these people on television because these former members of Congress think, hey, this is how I can take the next step in my career, is to get a television show, right? And so here's the secret, right? During the Christmas holiday, like I used to be a news anchor, right? I used to be a news anchor on the #1 morning show in cable news. And no one wants to work during the holidays. Like, no one wants to work during Christmas. No one wants to work during New Year's. My birthday is New Year's Eve. Like, no, I don't want to work. But I would, you'd kind of switch off. So none of these news anchors and reporters want to work during the holiday. And this is an opportunity for then the network to basically find random schleps at different places and say, hey, I've got a great opportunity. On December 26th, would you like to come to New York City and anchor your first television show? Sort of couched as like, we want to give you a shot. But really it's, we have nobody else available. So that's exactly how Trey Gowdy managed to wind up on television. Congressman Trey Gowdy gets on television and interviews David Perdue. And he gives him an amazing softball question. And watch how David Perdue can't even answer this softball question. It's hilarious. Please enjoy every moment of this.
To the job, but once you get elected, there's a service component to the job. What about your service as a United States Senator? Should voters who are trying to make up their minds in Georgia, what part of your service would you like to highlight for them?
So here, what a softball question, right? What things do you do in the community? What do you do in Georgia that helps Georgians, beyond just the office? Like, do you go out and volunteer on the weekends? Do you help poor Georgians, at nursing homes, at food banks? Do you go to help blind children? Is basically what he's asking, right? It's like a perfect tee up. How many blind children do you help? And this is why Georgians should vote for you. So that's Trey Gowdy asking the question. So this is an easy answer, right? Tell us about all of your service to the people of Georgia.
Well, that's a tough question, Trey.
Home run. That's a tough question. No, that's not it. That's the opposite of a tough question. That's the easiest question in the history of television right there. That's a tough question.
As an outsider, I never ran for office before I ran for the Senate in 2014. I just felt like the country was headed in the wrong direction. I felt like I could make a difference, and I believe we have. But the most gratifying thing may have just happened today, as a matter of fact. I mean, in this bus tour, you see people all over the state. I mean, we're going to small towns.
Most gratifying thing just happened today. I know I asked you about your service. Like, what do you do to provide service to the people of Georgia? Like, what do you do? It's a tough question. I have to say the most gratifying thing happened today, of all days, right before I got on television.
All over the state. And unlike my opponent who's hanging around Atlanta, we're going all over the state. Over 125 stops. And just
so I made 125 pit stops around Georgia. That's how I've served you. Is that what he's saying? Is that what he's getting to?
Today, I had 6 people individually, the 6 men, step up to me quietly after the event was over. And these events will have anywhere from 50 to, we had almost 4,000 people in one last week with Ivanka.
This man called me before I got back on the bus. He said, you know, there's 6 times this happened. I just want to tell you, I'm a Vietnam veteran, and I never got anybody to help me with my problems until your staff helped me this year, last year, whatever. But they made, each one of these 6 people made those comments to me today.
That's it. That's his service. That someone in the VA office managed to help a Vietnam veteran. Okay. By the way, the VA is still a shit show. Talk to any veterans who are been trying to get help during COVID, trying to get in and access to different medical care. It's a crap show. I know, I've talked to them. So this is how you think of your service? What's been so gratifying for you? You know, you've been in service. Like, what has been so gratifying for you over these many years as a United States Senator? There's so much more that comes with this office of service. How do you handle it? Like, what is your favorite thing that you do that you provide service to the people of Georgia?
To the job, but once you get elected, there's a service component to the job. What about your service as a United States Senator? Should voters who are trying to make up their minds in Georgia, what part of your service would you like to highlight for them?
Well, that's a tough question, Trey. You know,
That is such a tough question. I got a few actually tough questions for you. I'd be happy to ask them. Give me a chance. How about those mysterious stock trades right before the coronavirus collapse? How about, I don't know, why you haven't supported any stimulus checks, but then suddenly when it's politically expedient for your reelection, you suddenly are supportive of that? That would have been my first question. Senator, you've been criticized for not supporting stimulus checks. In fact, you were outspoken against even the $1,200 stimulus checks. So why now are you supporting the $2,000 stimulus checks? Is it only because President Trump tweeted about it a few weeks ago? That's a tough question. Can you answer that for us? Why did you flip-flop? Because now you see that Georgians are actually hurting? It's a tough question, Trey. You know, that's a really tough question. So as a result of this, David Perdue and Jon Ossoff running, and Kelly Loeffler, et cetera, and the battle unfolding there. Jon Ossoff is a new ad running today, and it is, once again, holding their feet to the fire. These things have a tendency to go viral, but it's a pretty darn good ad. Watch.
Who has your back not just when it's politically expedient, not just when he's about to face the people, but at all times. And if you elect me and Reverend Warnock to the Senate, we will deliver the direct COVID relief that the people need to keep people in their homes, to keep families on their feet.
So why is he not for these stimulus checks all of a sudden? Or why is he for these stimulus checks all of a sudden? It's really fascinating.
David Perdue opposed even the first round of $1,200 checks. David Perdue was adamant for an entire year that he opposed direct relief for the people. Well, he's changed his tune in the last few days because an election is coming. But you know what, Cobb County? You deserve a senator who has your back not just when it's politically expedient, not just when he's about to face the people, but at all times. And if you elect me and Reverend Warnock to the Senate, we will deliver the direct COVID relief that the people need to keep people in their homes, to keep families on their feet.
So David Perdue under quarantine right now, and of course the election. Big runoff happens on Tuesday. I'm telling you, folks, this is exciting. It's exciting for so many reasons, because if we can get rid of Mitch McConnell, if we can send this guy packing back to Kentucky without the leadership, without the Senate Majority Leadership title, Chuck Schumer takes it over. Not that these guys are any better, but that at the very least, we know that a massive stimulus package would unfold at the end of January. That's what I'm most concerned about. I think, as you know, I think both parties are corrupt. And I think there are fringe people. I think there are progressive candidates. I think there are people like Bernie Sanders. There are a few key progressives who have gotten in through the election. And by the way, who ran during this time when other members of the House of Representatives lost. right? Nancy Pelosi loses seats in the House, and progressive candidates win by running on Medicare for all, by running on stimulus, by running on relief, by running on reducing student loan debt across this country, ending our foreign wars. It's amazing that these people actually won elections. And who lost elections? These centrist Democrats, these people who haven't done anything, these people who sit in the middle of the road. And that's exactly what happened yesterday. We saw Senate Democrats take a bath. We saw Senate Democrats roll over for Republicans. They had an opportunity to stand up to Mitch McConnell, like Bernie Sanders was doing, to withhold this vote on that veto overturning of the National Defense Authorization Act, to stop it. And they rolled over. There were only a few of them that actually came out and stood up. David Sirota wrote a great piece on this. Senate Democrats motioned to concede on $2,000 checks. And he says, and go through this a little bit. He says it's always a possibility that Democrats would get too scared to halt a major Pentagon bill in order to help millions of Americans get $2,000 survival checks. He says, in fact, as we wrote earlier this week, it was very likely that they would back down the moment any bad faith critic so much as waved a flag and said, support the troops. See, that's what happens, folks, is that the moment someone says, you don't support the troops, then they collapse. It's not about supporting the troops, and we all know it. If you've been watching my show for any length of time, you know that it's not what that's about. What it's about is funneling billions of dollars to defense contractors. It's lining the pockets of these companies. It's not about supporting the troops. Yes, there are pay raises, which would happen. That's a small piece of this. But because rhetorically, then people can say, oh, you don't support the troops. You don't support the troops. But that's a one little tiny fraction of it when we talk about pay raises, et cetera. The bulk of it goes to sending money to countries all around the world, setting up military bases all around the world, continuing these foreign wars, removing presidential power to eliminate some of these wars. It strengthens the Pentagon's ability to keep these troops in foreign countries despite the president of the United States trying to bring them home. Yeah, President Trump has faced an uphill battle in trying to get troops home from Afghanistan. Why? Because the military-industrial complex keeps it so. So instead of Democrats standing up to this monstrosity, they bowed. And capitulation, as David Sirota says, became even more likely this week when Larry Summers, do you remember Larry Summers this week? I showed you his video. When he came out, the former Treasury Secretary under Bill Clinton came out and said that $2,000 stimulus checks, he doesn't think that they're worthwhile. Oh, and by the way, he didn't even think $600 stimulus checks were worthwhile. Did I not slam him on the air? Democrat. So Larry Summers says, well, people can't even fly right now. So how are they going to use $2,000 stimulus checks? How are you equating the fact that we can't fly anywhere with being able to use $2,000 stimulus checks, you moron? How many of you watching right now, let me know in the chat, live, tell me right now, again, how would $2,000 help you and your family? So you get these out of touch, beltway neoliberals that have been hanging around for years that care about that centrist position, massive military budget, care about Wall Street, but don't care about you. So you have these little moments. By the way, you're not going to see this being covered on MSNBC. You're not going to see them talking about this on CNN. So when you support our show here and you subscribe to our channel, you're supporting independent journalism. So thank you so much for subscribing to my channel, because I'm going to call out this hypocrisy and we are going to hold them accountable. Chuck Schumer, I'm talking to you. Kamala Harris, who voted for this, I'm talking to you. What happened to Kamala Harris, by the way, who supported $2,000 along with Bernie Sanders and Ed Markey, retroactive, $2,000 back until March, and you would receive $2,000 a month. What happened to Kamala Harris? Guess what? She voted for the Defense Authorization Act, the veto overturn. Where did she? She melted away. That's what happens to these people. She changes her skin like a chameleon, a political chameleon. Whatever is politically expedient for Kamala Harris, she does. Joe Biden asks her to become a centrist Democrat all of a sudden, or, that's fine. Support the Defense Authorization Act. I didn't see President-elect Biden out talking about stimulus $2,000 checks at all. He showed zero leadership on this issue. He just watched as President Trump took the leadership role on this issue for once. Yes, way late in the process. Way to go, President Trump. You waited until after they had already passed a $600 stimulus check bill to stick your neck out and talk. I love the hypocrisy of all of these clowns. I mean, just to give you an idea of how massive the scale of what Democrats did this week was, I mean, the fact that they surrendered to Republicans in this way was astounding. I mean, think about the day, right? It started with Bernie Sanders standing up, following through on his promise to deny unanimous consent for the Senate to advance that $740 billion budget for the military. He said, I'm not going to allow you to bring this to the floor until we get these $2,000 survival checks out for people. So what did that do? It forced Mitch McConnell's hand. It forced him to ask the Senate to pass a formal motion to proceed on the defense bill. So they all had to come down and vote for it. So instead, as Republicans needed to pass the bill, 41 Democrats obediently followed. 41 Democrats. These 41 Democrats had an opportunity to say, we're not budging on this. Yes, we support our troops. That's not what this is about. This is about the American people who need this money right now, who are going to be thrown out of their homes, who can't put food on the table. But what did these Democrats do? They bowed. They conceded. Mitch McConnell won this battle. Why does Mitch McConnell keep winning? Because these Democrats are weak. And when AOC a few weeks ago got slammed for saying that we need to get rid of Pelosi and Chuck Schumer, we need new leadership in the Senate and the House, she got slammed by the mainstream media. Did you see that? Oh, yeah. The mainstream media, MSNBC, CNN, couldn't believe that AOC was trying to take down Chuck Schumer. She's right. So these Senate Democrats come out and vote yes, along with Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell. Kamala Harris votes yes. Chuck Schumer votes yes. Only 6 members voted no on this. Only 6. These people should be held up as heroes. These people's names you should remember. These people, these 6 Democrats voted against it. Who? I'll give you their names so you can remember who they are. Elizabeth Warren, Bernie Sanders, Chris Van Hollen, Jeff Merkley, Ed Markey, Ron Wyden. By the way, what's interesting to me is that Kamala Harris, Bernie Sanders, and Ed Markey were the 3 senators that came together to roll out the Emergency Money for the People Act, which would have provided $2,000 stimulus checks per month, like Canada is doing, like other countries are doing. And it would have been retroactive back to March of when the pandemic began. Well, Ed Markey voted against this Defense Authorization Act. Bernie Sanders voted against this Defense Authorization Act. What happened, Kamala Harris? What happened? Changing your colors again? Chameleon. The political chameleon, who's now VP-elect. Oh, Clayton, don't speak badly about Kamala. When people in the Senate and Congress tell you they're going to do something, and then they do the opposite, I will call them out. When they get up there at a podium and they tell you they're going to stand for the American people, they're going to push for expanded stimulus, they're going to push for Medicare for all, and then they do the opposite, and they vote for a massively bloated military budget, which expands foreign wars, sends more bombers, more drones, billions of dollars around the world, and you can't support $2,000 stimulus checks? Only 6 members of the Senate Democratic Committee mustered the courage to vote against McConnell's bill. Here is David Perdue. Here is David Sirota, who wrote this piece, and he's been, he's one of the few reporters who has the guts to call these people out. And I welcome him on this show anytime that I could. Here's David Sirota going deeper into this process and why these Democrats bowed to this. He was speaking with Crystal Ball over on the Rising show.
So a vote yesterday was a key vote where McConnell tried to move the defense bill forward. Bernie Sanders said, "You're not moving it forward. I object unless you allow a vote on the $2,000 checks." McConnell said, "I need to have now a roll call vote to move the process forward, to move the defense bill forward without having a vote on the $2,000 checks." And what ended up happening was that the majority of senators who voted for that motion, 41 senators, were Democrats. To vote with McConnell for his motion to move the defense bill forward without a vote on the $2,000 checks. So essentially taking away the leverage that the Democrats had to use the defense bill to compel a vote on the $2,000 checks. Only 6 Democrats, senators in the Democratic caucus, Bernie Sanders and 5 others, voted against the motion to proceed. It may have gone down had all of the Democrats voted the other way, because there were a handful of Republicans who also voted against that motion to proceed. So it's a little wonky, it's a little procedural, but the point here is that the Democrats had the chance to not allow Mitch McConnell to move forward the defense authorization bill without a vote on $2,000 checks, and they ended up instead giving him 41 of the votes for that measure. Again, more Senate Democratic votes for that McConnell procedural measure than even Republican votes.
Someone asks in the chat, Monique Woods asks, Clayton, is it possible the Democrats went ahead and did this to sink the 2 senators in Georgia on Mitch's watch and win? They can ride in with this massive stimulus package. I just don't see how voters could draw that distinction. You guys are smart because you're following my show. I just don't see how most Georgia voters would draw that line. I mean, at the end of the day, Mitch McConnell already blocked it multiple times. So he had already blocked this. If Georgia Republicans don't know that Mitch McConnell, the head of their party, already doesn't want you to have stimulus, then there's no hope for those people. I mean, right? Let's be honest. Georgians know that Mitch McConnell doesn't care about them. Mitch McConnell cares about big business. And they always play up these sort of cultural issues in order to try to get people elected. Right? We're going to protect you against socialism. We're going to protect you against the left and their abortions. And then when they get into power, they don't give a rat's ass about any of those cultural issues. All they care about is big business. Big oil, big gas, all of them that funnel billions of dollars to their pockets. That's it. Even more ridiculous was watching the New York Times, which, as you know, I can't stand. Filled with a bunch of liars and reporters who make things up. I watched it happen, by the way. So the New York Times, Paul Krugman, right? Everyone all on the liberal side, like if you watch Chris Hayes or MSNBC, like we're going to have Paul Krugman on. New York Times, Paul Krugman, to tell us about why, what about these stimulus checks? So what happened over the past few days is CNN, MSNBC, the mainstream media fell in line. Newsweek, Time Magazine, they all fell in line with this, hey, $2,000 stimulus checks, not good for the American people. So if any of you have got subscriptions to the New York Times, cancel them. Get real newspapers. Get access to, thedailyposter.com or other really good sources of information instead of the New York Times. So Paul Krugman comes out along with Thomas Friedman from the Times saying that this wildly popular initiative is divisive. $2,000 is divisive. The economics aren't very good, Paul Krugman says. Times, I love how David Sirota says this, Timesman Tom Friedman, who married into a real estate empire, called the idea crazy and fretted that checks might go to people who don't need help. Yeah. Wow, these extra few $100s that might go to someone where they might put it in savings or pay down some additional debt, that would be very bad, right? But we're okay to send billions of dollars to the Middle East. And then it's couched as you're not supporting the troops. I'm sick of this. I'm sick of it. When I used to work at the network, when I used to work at Fox, the idea was, yeah, you always, you'd hear from these congressmen, you got to vote for the defense bill. You're against the troops. That's the rhetorical argument. Oh, you're against the troops? Troops? Are you kidding me? If you really cared about the troops, the VA wouldn't be a total shit show. If you really cared about the troops, then why is $738 billion of this budget not going to the troops at all? It's going to foreign governments. It's going to defense contractors. It's going to Boeing and Raytheon and Northrop Grumman. If you really cared about the troops. I care about the troops. I come from a military family. My father served. My father slept in a Nazi SS barracks in Nuremberg, Germany. Don't tell me. My brother served in the Iraq War. Support the troops, my ass. Such a joke. Anytime someone says that to you, just laugh, please, and walk away. Or maybe have a good question, over a Christmas dinner, over Valentine's Day dinner with that crazy uncle. It's like, I don't want one of these Bernie Sanders guys in there because they don't support the troops. Oh yeah? Is that how it goes? Which is ridiculous. So we then you had Larry Summers, you had Paul Krugman, you had Tom Friedman from the New York Times, you had Newsweek, you had Time Magazine, all of the quote unquote liberal media. I want you to remember this. They're not. They're not progressive. They don't give a crap about you. They care about lining the pockets of billionaires. They care about billionaires. And look at this headline this morning. This will make you feel warm and fuzzy. While you're suffering without these $2,000 stimulus checks, Wall Street minted 56 new billionaires since the pandemic began. But many families are left behind. Yeah, you think? Coronavirus has destroyed the lives, savings, and small businesses of innumerable Americans. But the year wasn't a financial washout for everyone. No, Wall Street did just fine, of course. And then here's this Newsweek piece. Opinion. McConnell's right. The $2,000 checks are a bad idea. Oh, everyone slams Newsweek for being a liberal rag, right? Really? Is it? Peter Roth, Newsweek contributing editor. One of the highlights of this article I love this morning. If stopping the checks means more people clamoring for a return to normalcy, then McConnell has done the nation a great service. Just let that sink in for a moment. So his argument for not giving you $2,000 stimulus checks is that, you know what, this is forcing you to get off your lazy ass and get back to work. All of you watching right now, my show, you just must be lazy. That's really what it is. That's what he's saying in this thing. I don't think you're lazy. Let me be clear. I think you're incredibly hardworking, compassionate Americans who are taking care of people in your family, extended family. You have people sleeping on your couch, and through no fault of your own, you've had hours cut. you're essential workers and you've not received hazard pay, you've been screwed by this government. And we should vote these clowns out. But he agrees with Mitch McConnell. If stopping the checks means more people clamoring for a return to normalcy, then McConnell has done the nation a great service. Larry Summers, he says, the liberal economist, first of all, he wants to lay in, here he is painting this argument. Larry Summers, he's a liberal economist who served as Bill Clinton's Treasury Secretary and director of Obama's National Economic Council. Oh, and by the way, he's been an advisor to Biden. Let's not leave him out. He says there's no good economic argument for universal checks. The economy is roaring back in fits and starts. Fits and starts. The economy is roaring back. It's got a few little fits and starts. That little fit over there was you losing your job. That little start over there was that business being closed. But those are just little fits and starts. These out of touch people. Look at this guy. Peter Roth. Peter Roth. He says, with a third quarter of 2020 growth at never before seen, 33%, adjusted on an annualized basis, the checks that Trump, Pelosi, and Schumer want can't improve on that. They can put our children and grandchildren deeper into debt than they already are. McConnell should maintain his hard no. As Ronald Reagan said, the best welfare program is a job, which expanded out means the best form of stimulus. And what we need right now is to let the American people get back to work, not subsidize their continuing to stay home. In other words, you are lazy, says Peter Roth. You are lazy. Get back to work. There's your liberal media. Newsweek. By the way, if you got a Newsweek subscription, go ahead and cancel that too. That thing is not worth the paper it's printed on. It hasn't been for years. Masquerade, political expedience, pretending that it really cares about you. Newsweek. Who's reading Newsweek? Yeah, give me a Newsweek and I'll line my bird cage with it. The next thing I'll do is I'll go out and buy a bird so that I can actually have a bird cage to line it with. Peter Roth. McConnell's right. And I saw this article going viral. I mean, I see this being shared all over the place. Yeah, this is, and it's pushed out on Google News. It's pushed out everywhere. These people really care about you. These articles come out literally just a week after Washington Post put out a huge story about all of the rising poverty and starvation across America. At the same time, the Washington Post's own reporters are reporting on the starvation across the country. The Jeff Bezos owned paper, the editorial board comes out and says that we don't need stimulus, that the economy has healed itself significantly. The Post, of course, which is owned by the world's richest man, Jeff Bezos, who bought it, argued against the $2,000 checks, saying it is unjust that some rich people might, in theory, end up benefiting from the proposal. Which, by the way, the same editorial board of the Washington Post defended the 2008 bailout of Wall Street. So they're fine to bail out Wall Street, just not you, the American people. The Post also borrowed some spin from Larry Summers, arguing that people probably won't use the money because restaurants are closed and air travel is limited. When we featured that on my show the other day, I couldn't stop laughing. The idea that because you can't fly right now, you wouldn't find some reason to use $2,000 stimulus checks? Let me ask you in the chat right now. First of all, do you give a rat's behind about flying anywhere? Knowing that you can't fly, would you find a way to use $2,000 stimulus? I think you'd probably come up with an idea. By the way, you want to stimulate business? Have customers that have money in their pockets, able to buy groceries, able to not have to ration their medicine. You know, one of our viewers, I keep thinking about her the other day, Tammy Gibbs, if you're watching, I hope you're doing okay this morning. She's on medication. She's having to ration her medicine every other day. Instead of taking it every day like the doctor prescribed, she's stretching it out and skipping days because she can't afford to then pay that much for medicine. I love these liberal papers. They're pretending to be saying, you know, McConnell is worth an estimated $34 million, just to be clear. And McConnell was not going to be bullied into rushing money into the hands of rich Democrats. So 80 senators just rubber stamped this bloated defense bill. 80 senators would have done it by unanimous consent if it were not for Bernie Sanders standing up for this, stepping in the way. It's so surprising, isn't it? And this is why, President Trump understands the populist message. He understands that Americans are suffering. Does he care necessarily about you? I don't know, but he understands the messaging. That's why a number of Republicans, even like Josh Hawley, came on board to support the $2,000 stimulus checks. But Senator John Thune didn't, and is feeling the wrath from President Trump this morning. This is what happens. Now he's naming names. I'm telling you, this weekend is going to be really interesting. As President Trump starts to tweet and take down, as he just tweeted moments ago, I will be in Georgia, he says, on Monday night. Get ready to vote on Tuesday. He says, make America great again. But once again, he's in this weird predicament with his Republican Party. On the one hand, you have Mitch McConnell, the Senate leader, who will not bring this $2,000 stimulus checks to the floor for a vote. Americans are suffering. If Georgians know that they can throw this guy out of power in Georgia, will you? Like, how many of you in Georgia right now are watching? Let me know in the chat. If you know you have the power to get rid of Mitch McConnell, will you go out and vote? Would you might not otherwise? I would love to hear from you. But this is the predicament that, of course, President Trump is in right now as he attacks these Senate Republicans. And he's telling people to go out and vote in Georgia. Which would support the very people he's slamming right now. He called the Senate, Republican-controlled Senate, pathetic for failing to deliver $2,000 stimulus checks. He said, we need new leadership now. So he's going to go to Georgia and ask you to vote for Kelly Loeffler and David Perdue, who David Perdue can't even ask a simple question about his type of service. Good luck. President Trump says now they want to give people ravaged by the China virus only $600 rather than $2,000, which they so desperately need. Not fair, not smart, he says. And then, of course, David Ossoff jumping all over the fact that David Perdue didn't want to support this at all. Didn't want to support stimulus checks at all in Georgia. But now he does. Suddenly, it's politically expedient for him to want to do that.
David Perdue opposed even the first round of $1,200 checks.
True.
David Perdue was adamant for an entire year that he opposed direct relief for the people. Well, he's changed his tune in the last few days because an election is coming. But you know what, Cobb County? You deserve a senator who has your back not just when it's politically expedient, not just when he's about to face the people, but at all times. And if you elect me and Reverend Warnock to the Senate, we will deliver the direct COVID relief that the people need to keep people in their homes, to keep families on their feet.
Grover likes that message, don't you, buddy? So all eyes on Tuesday, folks. But right now, something is, I just want to put a button on this today. I think something really interesting is happening with the Republican Party, and you're witnessing it right now. On the one hand, you have the establishment. Once again, you have the big money Republicans. You have the Mitch McConnells. Then you have the populist voice of, the populist Trump version of the Republican Party clashing once again. And so Republicans are coming out saying they think that perhaps we need to start a whole new party. Now, remember, I'm not a Republican. I'm not a Democrat. I'm an independent. But I think it's absolutely interesting to watch. I've been calling for third parties. I mean, I want a really strong progressive party, a people's party that can push through Medicare for all, a real Green New Deal, eliminating our relationship with carbon and fossil fuels, making sure that our kids are not saddled with student loan debt, universal health care for all. That's what I want. On the Republican side, what do they want? So William Cohen, of course, a Republican, former senator from Maine, slamming where this party is going, and he's basically calling for a new party, for a new Republican Party. Listen to what he has to say. It's pretty fascinating.
Yeah, well, for Trump, it's pathological. For those who are jumping up to support him, it's diabolical. And I don't think it's diabolically clever. I think they will find they'll be hostage for the rest of their time in the Senate and going forward if they're only there to appease the Trumpsters. So I think there's a real division. I would like to see the Mitt Romneys, the Susan Collins, and the others, the Ben Sass, Governor Thornburg. Thornburg just died today. Where are the Governor Thornburgs in the United States Senate? Why aren't they standing up for the rule of law? That used to be what the Republicans most prized ourselves on: rule of law, peaceful transition of power, engaging with our allies. Yes, fiscal responsibility to be sure. But where's the principle, the ethics involved? We had a young congressman-elect just died at the age of 41. And now we have a young senator standing up saying, it's my chance to stand up for what? For Trump or for the Constitution? And so I think there's a real split there. I don't know how Mitch McConnell's going to handle it going forward.
What he's talking about there is Josh Hawley. Josh Hawley, of course, who took the populist helm of Missouri and standing up for $2,000 stimulus checks, at the same time also saying that he doesn't want to certify the Electoral College results and is going to argue against the Electoral College results. So he's taking on that Trumpian, and I told you the other day that this is him running for president. This is him running for office, running for the presidency, Josh Hawley. And so what William Cohen is saying here is here's the split between the Mitch McConnells and the future of the Republican Party. What should happen? Start an entirely new party?
But maybe it's time for a new party, one that abides by the rule of law, abides by balanced budget opportunities, fiscal responsibility, but also faithful to the people of this country who vote to elect them.
What do you think? Let me know in the chat. Should Republicans create an entirely new party, a populist party that supports the Trumpian philosophy of life, which is, hey, yeah, we're going to continue to keep, Confederate soldiers' names on our military bases. But I also support $2,000 stimulus checks and ending foreign wars. And the establishment Republican Center, which continues to pump billions of dollars to big business and Wall Street. Let me know. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this in the comments below. Bernie Sanders just moments ago sending out saying, Republicans don't, over the past 4 days, I have asked time and time again for a vote on $2,000 payments. That Trump, Biden, 2/3 of the House, including 44 Republicans and 78% of the public support. Tragically, Republican leadership has turned its back on the working families of this country. He says, at a time when so many Americans are facing economic desperation, it's tragic that the Republican leadership has turned their backs on the working families of this country. When the Biden administration assumes office, the Senate must immediately take up and pass bold legislation which deals with the economic pain that so many Americans are experiencing. So this is the next stage, folks. Putting together a massive stimulus package under President Biden in the next few weeks. We already know that many pieces of this legislation are written. It's already coming together. Democrats have already been putting this thing in place. And so if Mitch McConnell loses on Tuesday, because Kelly Loeffler and David Perdue lose in Georgia. Mitch McConnell loses power. They then are able to pass a massive stimulus package at the end of January. And of course, one of the big things that could be on top of that pile would be eliminating student loan debt. True rental assistance in this country to make sure that people aren't thrown out of their homes. Frontline worker care, hazard pay, essential worker money, on and on. And perhaps even a form of universal basic income that Kamala Harris, Bernie Sanders, and Ed Markey supported. Maybe Kamala Harris will actually twist the arm of Joe Biden and get a sort of universal basic income set inside this bill. Let's see. But folks, we're going to be watching over the next 24 hours because tomorrow we'll be covering this here. There's a new Congress that comes in tomorrow. Can they bring this up for a vote once again? That's what Bernie Sanders is pushing for. Can they, even before Monday, try to push for another $2,000 stimulus check? Let's watch to see what President Trump does today, because I think he's going to take these guys to task. Just watch later today as he takes Mitch McConnell to task. You watch. It's about to happen. I can sense it like a storm in the air. You can smell the ionizing in the atmosphere, can't you? In the meantime, thank you, everyone. Really appreciate you smashing that like button. It really helps us be pushed out to more people so they get to recognize and hear these stories and understand how this government is corrupt and what Wall Street is doing to you. You know, this is a show to help you where we're going to call out people and make sure that we hold them accountable. That's the whole purpose of this show, is accountability. So please subscribe to the channel right down here. Subscribe. And I got to, you know what, my wife's telling me I got to take the Christmas tree down today, right? How long do you go with the Christmas tree? So I got to take the Christmas tree down this morning. That'll be my duty. Let me know in the chat. How long do you keep a Christmas tree up? I think this weekend's a good weekend to do it, right? To take it down. It'll look a little weird next week to have a Christmas tree still up. All right. Much love to all of you. Thank you so much for dialing us up and subscribing to the channel. I really appreciate it. We'll see you back here tomorrow, right here on Morning Invest. And remember, don't be a